Imagine for a second that you believe you're entirely financially secure. You've played by the book, followed all the rules, and then boom, that entire reality is violently shattered overnight. Welcome to this explainer, where we're plunging straight into the visceral reality of Tony Yazbek's devastating financial collapse. Today we're going to explore a deeply personal journey of loss, sheer survival, and ultimately absolute defiance against the traditional financial system.
$75. That's it. Back in 2019, Tony was living in Lebanon. He'd put in the years, ground through the long hours, and made all the disciplined sacrifices you're supposed to make. He went to sleep one night believing he was, for all intents and purposes, financially retired. But he woke up the very next morning to find that almost everything he had built was just gone, wiped out. He was left with exactly $75 to his name. He literally went to bed financially retired and woke up completely homeless. It is a chilling summary of the Lebanese banking collapse. And we need to be clear here, this wasn't a market dip or a bad day on Wall Street. This was an absolute systemic freeze. Overnight, ATMs were shut down, bank accounts were completely locked. Think about Tony standing in a bank line with hundreds of other desperate faces, teachers, doctors, parents, who were all being told by tellers hiding behind bulletproof glass that there was simply nothing they could do. Ordinary citizens were suddenly and totally locked out of their own life savings. And without a functioning currency, people were instantly forced to barter basic everyday skills just to survive. A simple trip to the supermarket literally turned into a chaotic brawl over whatever food was left on the shelves.
Section 1. Waking up with nothing. The 2019 collapse really showed us just how fast modern society regresses straight back to the Stone Age when the money stops working. Which brings us to Section 2, a generational pattern. Because here's the wild part. This catastrophic financial loss wasn't some random, isolated fluke. It was a chilling pattern that Tony's own family had already endured. Let's look at the history here. Tony's father built a perfectly stable life in Lebanon, only for the civil war to completely wipe out his business and his bank accounts. So he moves to Madagascar. He starts from absolute zero, dedicates years to rebuilding his life, only for a corrupt government to step in, nationalize, and confiscate absolutely everything. Then he moves to Kuwait. He finds stability again, and then Iraq invades. 3 different geopolitical crises, 3 different governments, 3 separate times starting from absolute zero. And the realization that hit Tony as he stood in that desperate bank line in Lebanon was profound. He finally, existentially, understood his father. This cycle of loss, it wasn't just incredibly bad luck. It proved a terrifying thesis. When money belongs to the government or a centralized bank, it eventually stops belonging to you. The confiscation isn't a glitch. It's not a bug in the system. It is a feature. The system is working exactly as designed. So how on earth does a man lose everything 3 times and still keep moving forward? Tony realized his father survived not by relying on some broken external safety net, but by carrying forward unbreakable internal assets. He paid the price and moved forward using his skills, his raw judgment, his discipline, and by taking extreme personal responsibility. He never, ever waited for permission to rebuild because he knew firsthand that those external systems simply could not be trusted.
Section 3. The Fiat Illusion. It's time we talk about the dangerous lie that if you just work hard, stay honest, and follow the rules, the financial system will protect you.
Look, the fiat system basically operates as a custodial cage designed to control and surveil. Think of it like a giant leaky bucket. You trade your very finite time and energy trying to fill this bucket up, right? But inflation, which is just the infinite printing of money by central authorities, is a massive hole right at the bottom. No matter how many hours you work, no matter how hard you hustle, inflation quietly and constantly steals the purchasing power of your labor. So what actually happens when the money in the bank stops belonging to you? Pull out your phone right now. Imagine opening your banking app and just seeing a 0. Not because you spent it, but because a group of people you have never even met decided you aren't allowed to have it anymore. When that abstract theoretical threat of confiscation becomes a personal reality, how do you survive? Section 4. Discovering unconfiscable money. This is about finding an existential lifeline after 9 grueling months of sheer survival. After those long months of despair, Tony stumbled upon Bitcoin, and he calls it, quite perfectly, the middle finger to centuries of corruption. You know, it's absolutely crucial that we reframe this away from all those noisy charts and dollar prices you see flashing on the news. The fiat exchange rate really doesn't matter when you understand what Bitcoin actually is.
It's a monetary network backed entirely by math, energy, and cryptography. No living soul, no corrupt politician, and no desperate central bank can manipulate its rules.
Just look at the contrast here. With legacy banking, you have a system issued by the government, highly confiscatable, which Tony learned the absolute hardest way possible, and constantly debased by infinite printing. But then you look at the unyielding reality of Bitcoin. It is backed by math. It is completely unconfiscatable if you hold it properly, and it has a strictly fixed supply that can never, ever be diluted.
There are three core pillars that make Bitcoin the ultimate separation of money and state. First, it's trustless, meaning you don't have to trust a bank not to gamble away your life savings. Second, it's permissionless. No authority can step in, block your transaction, or freeze your account. And third, it's unconfiscatable, because no dictator, no geopolitical crisis can seize it. It literally acts as a direct ticket to freedom for 8 billion people worldwide.
Section 5, the power of self-custody. To truly opt out of the legacy system, you have to embrace absolute responsibility. Tony is incredibly adamant about this warning. Bitcoin wrapped in legacy finance is not Bitcoin. Having an unconfiscatable asset means absolutely nothing if you just turn around and hand it right back to the very system you were trying to escape. Buying through Wall Street ETFs or keeping your stack on massive exchanges, that's just the exact same custodial cage, just with different branding. If you don't hold your own private keys, you simply don't own the money. You are right back to asking for permission.
Taking self-custody is actually really straightforward. Step 1, you educate yourself on how money truly works. Step 2, acquire a piece of open-source hardware to generate your keys. And Step 3, secure your seed phrase completely offline. That's it. By following these exact steps, any ordinary person can become a master cybersecurity expert for their own wealth, cutting those middlemen out forever.
Self-custody is power, quiet, invisible power. Just think about what real competence looks like in this new world. It doesn't look like a frantic trading floor. It looks like a quiet Sunday afternoon. Your phone is off, no notifications buzzing. You just quietly write down 12 words on a piece of paper. Nobody is watching you. And in that solitary, peaceful moment, an extraordinary transfer of power happens. An ordinary person officially becomes their own bank.
All of the historical evidence suggests the next collapse really isn't a matter of if, but when. So when that system fails, will you be a victim standing in a line behind bulletproof glass begging for your own money? Or will you have stopped outsourcing your future, taken extreme personal responsibility, and made yourself truly free? Take that question with you today.